Hey everybody, this is Phil Caldwell coming at you again. That is at Dumpster Dive FF, and if you're on Twix, and I am going to be talking a little fantasy football wide receivers today. Seen a lot of back and forth about Brian Thomas Jr. and DJ Moore, so I am going to use some of the advanced tools and metrics that we have over at fffaceoff.com. Links in the below description. If you want to use these tools, they are all free to use, and they are fantastic when you're setting up your fantasy football lineups, making trades, doing all that good stuff. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and dive right in. So the first thing I'm going to look at is our consistency collection, because I want to see Brian Thomas and DJ Moore right here lined up with our wide receiver 1 and 2 average. So you see Brian Thomas is the red line. We got DJ Moore here in the green line. And we can see that for the most part, it looks like Brian Thomas Jr. has been clearly outscoring DJ Moore and that wide receiver 2 average for the most part this season. That wide receiver 2 average is the blue line, wide receiver 1 average is the black line. DJ Moore had that nice spike week that clearly, gives him a little bit more of a ceiling. But if we look at our consistency collection right here, 3.39 is the consistency score for Brian Thomas. He's had 33% of games in the top 12, 24 outside the top 24 for 50% of the games, but between 13 and 24 and about 16%. We have to go down to find DJ Moore here at 25th with a 2.67 consistency score. Only 16% of his games were in the top 12. Nothing in the top 24, so 13 to 24. And most of his games this year, 83%, all outside the top 24. So really just this spike week right here in week 5, DJ Moore had 25 half-point PPR points, and that's been about it. Other than that, he's been outside of your top 24 all season long. Let's go into one of our other tools. We got our player analysis. We're going to look at things in a little bit different light. Right here, we get to see fantasy points scored by opponent. So basically, he's been less than 12 fantasy points, and this is half-point PPR scoring in every matchup except for Carolina. Carolina, week 5, bam, there it is, 25 points. Every other opponent, less than 12 half-point PPR points. That is really not usable. He's got a 1.38 fantasy points per target, which ranks among all wide receivers 148th out of all of the wide receivers. That's not great. His median fantasy point, 10.45. Median is a great tool to use. I think it's better than fantasy points per game. I think it's better than total fantasy points. It really does give you, where you can really expect out of a fantasy player. So yeah, the median is 10.45. That is really, not something that, excites me. Let's go ahead and take a look at that same analysis tool with Brian Thomas Jr. Again, we have the consistency score ranks and everything like that. A 12.05 median. I like that a lot more. We're above the 10 points at least. We got a fantasy points per target of 1.82, which ranks 99th. So again, if we look at DJ Moore's, his fantasy points per target ranks 148th. Brian Thomas Jr., 99th. That is a lot better. We can also see, he's done well against Indianapolis, Houston, Miami, and then we fall below that 12 mark with Cleveland, Buffalo, and Chicago. What's really interesting here is I like Houston as a particular point right here because we got 18.9 fantasy points against Houston. We can go back to DJ Moore and look at that same thing, and against that same opponent, it was 11.3. So we got something that's comparable there, and it's clearly more in line with Brian Thomas Jr. If we look down here, we can just see that it's a little bit more consistency as far as how, week to week fantasy point scoring. Week 6 was a little rough, but that's all right. If we look at DJ Moore, week 6 was a little rough for him as well. So, apparently they were just both off that week. And this is another tool that I found with a really high correlation to fantasy points success, basically, is targets per route run. So if you have above a 20% targets per route run, it is really beneficial for that wide receiver to produce future fantasy success. So if we look at DJ Moore, We scroll down, he's got a 20% on the season targets per route run rate, which it's pretty good. It's right at that threshold of, conducive to future fantasy success. Ranks 54th among all wide receivers. That's not bad. However, what is really exciting with Brian Thomas Jr. is we find him right here at 37th. He's got a 22.35% on the season targets per route run. So that is a great indication of future success as well. I consider targets a earned stat. This is something that the wide receiver is going out there. He is running a good route. He is putting good moves on cornerbacks. He's getting open. He's getting in space. He's getting targeted by that quarterback. So I think that's really stutter kicking in. I think it's really indicative of, future targets, future opportunities, and volume coming towards him. Brian Thomas Jr., has got well over that 20% with a 22% on the season. So if you take a look at all of those things together, I really think that, the scales are leaning heavily in Brian Thomas Jr.'s side. I really like him moving forward. I know that the Jags have had, not the best season so far, but I think Brian Thomas Jr. can really bring you home some good fantasy value. So if you get the opportunity moving forward, I would definitely take Brian Thomas Jr. over DJ Moore in 2024. Again, if you guys like this video, awesome. Thank you. Please share it, subscribe, and most importantly, go out there, use these tools. Check these out. They're all free. They're on fffaceoff.com. I think that they are a huge value. And if you got any questions, please feel free to reach out, DM me, tag me, whatever you need to do. Thanks.